2 days ago, when everyone was telling you that Ethereum and Bitcoin were about to drop into the crypto abyss, I told you to look out for what Warren Buffett says, where he says, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. And what have we seen in the last few days is a significant bounce to the upside in Ethereum, with the price rising beyond $2,000. But where can it go from here? In today's episode, we're going to look at some of the latest news from Ethereum, as well as the latest Ethereum chart analysis. Hello guys, and welcome to the House of Crypto. I make videos about Ethereum as well as other cryptocurrencies. So if you're new to crypto, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of the latest happening in Ethereum, as well as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Without further ado then, let's jump into the first piece of Ethereum news for today. Okay, so it's saying here that the price shoots above 2K after Elon Musk reveals he personally invested in Bitcoin. We've been talking about Elon Musk and his potential for getting involved in Ethereum as it moves into a more eco-friendly function. It was more than likely that he would potentially be interested in Ethereum, and obviously here we are, we have this news story as well. Now, paying attention to this story, Ethereum has been operating in a very similar way to Bitcoin, and it has said that he is invested in Ethereum, and it says that he's been invested in Ethereum for a little bit of a while now. So it just goes to show that, you know, there's people out there who kind of have their own ideas of what's going on, and they want to move the market for themselves, because obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum were working in very much the same way. And he said that he didn't want to hold Bitcoin anymore because of the way it operated, but actually that was more of a dig perhaps towards China, who was clamping down on Tesla and making things quite difficult for Elon Musk. And obviously, as you know, up until very recently, Bitcoin was mainly housed in China, with around 60% of all Bitcoin production being in China. And obviously the situation has changed now, and that has moved out of China due to regulation. Now, a couple of days ago, I was talking about us, where we were hanging on at this level here, and we've been hanging on at this level here, hanging on here. And, you know, as we've been moving down, we've seen more and more buying pressure coming in, and we have seen this bounce back towards the upside. And we'll take a look at the Bitcoin chart in a minute. As you can see in the Ethereum chart, we haven't yet broken out, but something in the Bitcoin chart tells me that things are looking a bit more positive. From England, you probably know what Pubman is. Pubman is the guy down the pub who gives you advice on life, who gives you advice on investing, who doesn't tend to always know particularly what he or she are talking about. Okay, so when you're down the pub and you're hearing people telling you to go and buy Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's usually probably very high, because they've only heard about it sort of through the grapevine, and they probably don't really know what they're talking about. On the flip side of that, a few days ago, I was in fact down the pub, and someone told me, you should wait for Ethereum and you should wait for Bitcoin to go down to 10K. When people are telling you that they're waiting for the price to get that low because they've now lost their fear, they're now looking for another opportunity to get into the market, that's actually when we start to think, well, maybe, you know, when we want something to happen, it doesn't tend to happen. So we should pay attention to what is going on. So when people are telling you that they're waiting for that long and they're not necessarily in the game and don't really know what they're talking about, then that's when we should probably pick our ears up and start looking at what is going on. So when we were down at these levels and people were waiting for it to go lower, that's meaning that people are selling off, waiting for it to go lower to buy higher. But actually the whales we knew were accumulating at these levels throughout, which was keeping the price within this range. And every time it got higher, we had the retailers who perhaps bought high, trying to sort of get out of their positions, minimizing their losses. Now what we've seen is this big bounce back up to the sort of $2,120 at the point of making this video, and where we are sat literally as we speak at the point of breakout for this huge pattern. In terms of where a breakout would take us from this, we would take the height of this triangle wedge here, and then we would drop it up to here, which would take us all the way back up to around the $3,388 level. And as you can see, previously when we were here for a few days, we found resistance at this level. We then flipped into support. On the way down, this did provide us with a bit of support here, and again, you know, broke down through it, bounced up again, flipped it into resistance, and then we had this decrease back down to the downside. Now, while we haven't broken out in this chart pattern, and when we haven't yet broken out in terms of making trades, it's always a very risky trade, because we can always see another bounce back. And as we could see, if we were to take a bounce back down here, then we would run out of time and we more than likely would drop out the bottom. But because if we look at the Bitcoin chart, we can see that we have got this sort of falling wedge pattern, and we did get faked out before, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but we have had a daily close outside of that, and as you can see, we had this small tiny candle here, which is the new daily open, playing around on top of this previous pattern. So now what we've done is we flipped resistance into support. But be aware, guys, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're 100% safe and we're 100% going to go flying back to the moon, because look at this, what happened before. We had this breakout, which was then stiffly rejected, and then we came all the way back down from what, $41,000 all the way down to $28,000. And obviously if we see a swing like that in Bitcoin, then Ethereum will likely follow suit. So speculatively, I'd be putting in a trade here, and you could perhaps drop a stop loss perhaps back under this orange line, which would mean you have a potentially huge upside reward against very little risk. In terms of sort of buying and accumulating, in my opinion, it's looking at the longer game. If we're looking at short-term games with buying and selling, then we are basically gambling, guys. Because as we know, lots of things can change in the short term that have huge sort of impacts on the price, where we see these sort of big swings around in terms of price. But ultimately, if we're thinking about the long-term game of cryptocurrency and where we see Bitcoin heading in the next 5 years, Ethereum heading in 5 years, 10 years, maybe even in 1 year, 2 years, rather than 1 or 2 weeks or 1 or 2 months, then ultimately we should be looking to accumulate at different prices sort of lower down here. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to go all in. We've got a bit of cash to spend right now. You can put in maybe 10, 20% if it goes up a bit, or just consistently buy a certain amount of money, and then you just have a price average over time. And if you believe that the trajectory is moving in an upwards direction, then ultimately you're always going to be in a good position. Something very exciting, given that Bitcoin has just had a breakout. This is the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, and as you can see, I've been tracking this pattern for a few weeks now, which I've been put on the channel. So we've been consolidating into this descending wedge, finding support at around the 5.5%, and we've been sort of squeezed down over the last few weeks as Ethereum has been taking a bit of a hit while Bitcoin falls. Obviously Ethereum and the other altcoins will always react more severely. But what we can see from this is if we are due to have a breakout, then a breakout would take us up towards 9.2, perhaps even up towards 10% of a Bitcoin. Okay, so we've got Bitcoin floating around 33,000. So what would that, $3,300 Ethereum price? But ultimately, where we're looking at Bitcoin having a breakout, where we're going to see potentially hitting to at least 40K, maybe more, that will then bring us in line with an Ethereum moving back towards $4,000. And as we know, and the big upgrade, which we've been talking about for years now, is about to happen and is only less than 2 weeks away. Okay, so things are very, very interesting in the crypto space right now. Obviously, we've had a bit of a quiet summer, and things like China, etc., happening around the world has obviously taken a lot of volume out in the market, because obviously, as I've mentioned, a huge amount of money in crypto was held in China. A lot of money is still held in China, but obviously it's not being so easily traded as perhaps it was before, as regulations heat up over there. I wanted to bring you this quick update to follow on from the video I talked about the other day, which I'll link to the end of this video, so you can go back and see what I was talking about with Warren Buffett, etc. Back then. But in my opinion, things are looking very much brighter for cryptocurrency than they were over the last few weeks, where we've been pushed down, and it did look like we were going to descend further down into the crypto abyss. But ultimately, pay attention to what the big money is doing, the smart money, rather than looking at all what the retailers are doing. If the whales are buying and the price is dropping, it means that the retailers are the ones who are selling. Okay, and they're not necessarily the smart money, unfortunately, because ultimately the big players do always tend to win. So pay attention to what you're seeing. Always never risk more money than you can afford to lose. Obviously, things can move very quickly, as I'm sure you found out in the past. If you're going to day trade it, make sure you're using stop losses and always being ready to come back and trade tomorrow and not wiping out your accounts. Guys, thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you got some value out of today's video, please smash that like button. It really helps me with delivering this content to more and more people. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the latest happening in Ethereum, as well as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon with another video. Bye-bye.